Every single week I get asked the exact same question, the same DM. How do I actually run content for my clients? So I'm just going to show you because it's really not that complicated. I want to be very clear though before I get into this. Most people fuck it up and it's kind of killing me. They think making content is you have to start with the scripting, the ideating, and the market research. And yes, those things are important, but you need to work backwards. You need to figure out what purpose is your content serving? Where do you want to be in 6, 12 months time with content, or even 2 months? And as soon as you can identify who that person is, whether it's a 6-figure coach, whether it's a founder that runs multiple 8, 9-figure businesses, or you're a startup, whatever it is, if you can identify that's who I want to be, you can then build your positioning and you can understand, okay, if this is the person I want to be, how does that person act? How are they showing up online? And then from there, you can work backwards to install the habits, the beliefs, and the systems that are required to become that person. Because you got to remember, content is just a moat. It's a piece of marketing that we use to propel our bigger and better, I would say, life dreams or desires. So as soon as you can get very clear on that, everything becomes way more simple with content. But I'm just going to get into it. I'm going to show you this because we've got a lot to cover. Like I said at the start, you've got to be really clear on who do you want to be. And that really comes down to positioning. You need to understand your position in the market. Whether you're a founder, whether you're a coach, or even if you're a business, it doesn't really matter who you are. You always have a point of difference. And if you don't know what your point of difference is, then you need to figure it out. Because it's the same thing as creating a product. A product always has a point of difference in the market. Think of yourself as a product, not in a bad way, but what is making someone choose you and your product over someone else? What is making me choose the Frank Green water bottle compared to the $10 Kmart bottle? It's premium, it feels good, it looks good, their branding is really nice. I enjoy it, they create a feeling. Compared to the Kmart bottle that is just $10, I pick it off the shelf, it's shit, I wash it in the dishwasher and it gets mold on it in 2 weeks. That's positioning. If you can start to think of yourself in the exact same way in your content, it becomes really easy. And there's lots of ways that you do that. And as I said at the beginning of the video, if you can understand who you want to be in 6 months' time, you can then start to develop this kind of positioning document. John is this 6-figure business owner that is inspiring thousands of young people to start their own business and giving them free resources and education. As soon as John has that information, he can then start the intel and positioning step that we do for all our clients. And it's kind of broken up into 2. Obviously you see here the positioning architecture, which is our fancy word for strategy document, but it entails 5 key steps: the story, the dream follower or avatar, the visual direction, voice guide, and the authority narrative. And that is exactly what I'm talking about when you need to understand who you want to be and what purpose does your content serve. Before you can get to any of that though, you need to be looking at market intelligence. Now, in John's example, if he wants to inspire people and he wants to give free resources and education, let's just say he's in the AI niche, he needs to map his competitors. He needs to understand who are the top competitors in his landscape. And then after he's identified them, he needs to bank them, put them in a database so that he can always refer to that. After he has those 3 to 5 people, he then needs to find their top 10 to 15 videos, right? And after you have those videos, you're able to distill their transcripts. You can then run it through Claude, run it through an AI prompt that is going to digest it. Why did this work for this avatar? Get it to reverse engineer. You shouldn't be coming up with things from the spot, like from the get-go. You just look at what's already working. Stop overcomplicating it. And this kind of leads into the other important part that, if you're a business and you don't have an ICP document, and it kind of surprises me that people don't know what ICP is. And I'm not saying this to be mean, but if you want to achieve anything in business, you need to have an ICP. Like, come on. If you haven't done it, do a deep dive into your ICP, understand them better. You need to know who you're selling to. You need to understand their desires, understand their wants, understand what makes them tick. Because if you can't do that, you can't make content. And I kind of use the analogy of it's like a house. If you haven't got this intel and positioning layer done, and especially your ICP, it's like building a $1 million house on cardboard. It's just going to fall down. Something else that is really important is trend intelligence. And I think trends get a little bit of hate in terms of you shouldn't be following trends. And I'm a very big person on don't just jump on trends, but you should definitely be aware of what trends are happening, whether that's not just social media trends, but what trends are happening in your niche or in your market. That could be in the AI niche. still understanding the trend and intelligence of the market, being Opus 4.7 released or Codex 5.5. You need to have your pulse on what is happening in your industry so that you can create content that is relating and is hot. And if it's hot, you're going to get more views. And that's when your top of funnel content becomes very, very intentional. Really, really quickly, we'll fly past the positioning architecture, but this is arguably the most important document. And it's why when we work with people, we spend the most amount of time on it. It's why we do it first. It's why we have so many calls about it. And it's why there's like 30 million forms. There's not really, there's probably about 4 forms and like 3 calls. But it is so, so detailed for this exact reason, because if we get this right from the start, everything else becomes easy. And you should do the exact same thing. You need to understand your story. We live in an age where AI can just create any piece of content. You need to understand, again, like your point of difference. And your point of difference 99% of the time is going to be your story, your origin story. What makes you different? What makes you you? What has got you to the point where you are today? And there's a couple of reasons why that is so important, especially if you're selling an offer or if you're selling a business. People want to know that it is possible to go from where you were to where you are now. It's going to make you admirable. If you're trying to inspire people, you need to be admirable to people so that they want to buy from you, or they want to work with you, or they want to buy your product, or they want to follow you. You're not going to look up to any person just for the sake of looking up to them. There is something in there that they show that makes you want to look up to them. Dream follower, everyone's heard of this, and if you haven't, to keep it very, very simple, it is who you're targeting, it's your avatar, just understanding their demographics, who they are, what does their daily life look like, what life stage are they in, what are their aspirations. It just makes making top of funnel content very, very easy, because you're able to pop that into an AI or follow a couple of people that are doing similar things and then understand, cool, my avatar is X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z like A, B, and C. I'm going to make A, B, and C to appeal to bring them into my ecosystem. Something I think everyone skips over as well is the visual direction, and it's arguably the most important thing. I genuinely believe that visuals is what makes you stand out amongst everyone. If you have a crap quality camera, like, I'm not saying it's the most important thing, but at least invest in it a little bit. This phone right here, it's still great. You can still use the phone, just don't use a fucking Nokia. Or if you are going to use this phone, which I think this is a 16 Pro Max or something, I could download the Blackmagic app and it instantly becomes better. So it's just being intentional with your visuals, having a thing that you're known for. In most of my videos, I'm wearing a black t-shirt. It's just what I do. It creates that overall aesthetic that people will start to associate you and your brand with. Voice guide, also very, very, very important, especially in the age of AI. If you're able to synthesize how you speak and then instill that into your AI as well, because let's be completely real, if you're not using AI in your content, you're probably going to fall behind because you're just spending too much time scripting. It can be done quicker, it can be done at more volume, and it can be done better than what any human can basically do. So a voice guide is very, very important, because it's what's going to stop your content from sounding like AI slop. And the better your voice guide is the better your content's going to be. Now, if you're using Claude, or if you're using any OpenClaw agent, you should definitely be looking at a self-improving agent and installing a rule or a guardrail in that will learn off of the feedback that you give it on tonality and copy. So this voice guide is ever evolving. It's not stagnated and it's not coming out of date. It's always evolving with your language, the way you're talking in voice notes, etc. The authority narrative is very, very important. This is what I was saying about John. It's figuring out what is he known for currently and how is he positioning that. For example, you could be a sales coach. If you're a sales coach, maybe there's something about your journey or about what you are doing that can give you a sense of authority. Maybe you've done $10 million in revenue. All of a sudden, you're not just a sales coach. You're a sales coach that has generated $10 million in revenue for clients. Just that little bit there gives way more authority to your personal brand and your content compared to the person that maybe did $2 million or just none. So if you can find those points of differences that give you a sense of authority, it's going to make you stand out. Once we have like this main kind of process down pat, the positioning, architecture and whatnot, that's when we really start thinking about content. And there's a couple of ways that we get content off of our founders, because again, AI slop is ridiculous. Anyone can put out here are the 3 ways that I would create X, Y, and Z, or the top 10 tips. And that's why content sucks now, to be completely honest with you. And it's also becoming very clear what content is working, and it's legit documenting the journey. As stupid as it sounds and as cliche as it sounds, just showing what you are doing and being raw and authentic and not making shit up is what's working. So we've really simplified the process. When you think about where do the best ideas come from? Maybe the best ideas do come from you sitting down and typing in a Notion doc. But for 99% of the people that I work with and for 99% of the people that I know, it doesn't. It comes when we're having a coffee or when we're on a Google Meet and we just popped a random thought. So we kind of stepped back and we realized, cool, where are the ideas already flowing? Okay, maybe they're already flowing on sales calls. They're already flowing on internal communications. They're already flowing on coaching calls. Wherever the content is already flowing and the person is in their best state, we document it. If we can get the founder to document it with their camera, we will. If we can't, that's why we have our content calls. Now, content calls, if you haven't heard of them, legit 30 to 45 minutes. We walk in there. There is usually a rough guide, usually 5 to 10 questions that we meticulously pick, and they are conversation starters. It's legit just having a chat. I want to know what the person is doing in their business. What are they up to outside of their business? What wins have they had? What losses have they had? And we transcribe that and we bank it into what we call the vault. And along with the content calls, we have things like workshops and long form recordings. If you record a 20 to 30 minute YouTube video, why would you just leave that as one piece of content in the distribution channel? Like what? There's probably another 10 to 20 videos or ideas or context even that we can pull out of that. And if that isn't documented in the right place, it's just pointless. Another thing that we have recently implemented is voice memos and observations. So we've made it really, really simple for our clients to log onto their dashboard and just record a voice memo. And what that does, it'll just send to us, it'll transcribe it, and we have that banked in that client's database. Now, the most important thing here is, as fractional CMOs and as a personal branding agency, we can't be in every single call. Right? We can't be there 24/7. So we need to figure out how can we keep our touch points on everything to ensure that the founder can focus on what they're doing best and we can focus on creating the best content. That's why we have introduced meeting intelligence. Now, most people use Fathom. If they use Notion AI, even better, because our entire company OS is ran on Notion. But this is a really, really powerful tool that we've implemented. And the concept is the same for whoever you are. Record all your meetings, transcribe them, record them. If you can get video and transcribe them, even better. And that's why most people use Fathom. If you can just get a transcription, just start with that. But if you can start transcribing every single meeting that you have, put it into a database, and then tag it with what type of meeting it was. Maybe it was a sales meeting. Maybe it was a catch-up. Maybe it was a planning meeting with your team. Maybe it was maybe you had a sales call where you were outreaching to someone, right? All of that becomes intelligence that you can then use in your content. It is the simplest way to create content without thinking, because it's already happening. All it then comes down to is having a really detailed SOP and process that is designed to pull the correct things relating to your positioning architecture, your position in the market, your point of difference, your offer, pulling them from the vault and then turning them into content. It's as simple as that. Now, you can add an extra layer into there, which is what we do. And we call these the content pieces. There's a really key reason why we have them. And for a long time, they were a little bit confusing, to be honest with you. But when you look at your top creators, think of like Alex Hormozi or, Nick Setting, anyone, right? They are always repeating the exact same theme or the exact same topic multiple times over. It just has a different angle. So how do you actually implement that into your content? If you have a content vault entry, maybe you did a content call with your friend, and then you did a 30-minute long YouTube video talking about AI intelligence, using John as an example again. You want to extract the key themes that you have then been talking about, and then relating it again to your your meeting notes, because that's what's happening on your day-to-day. You can really start to pull out what are the things that you're continuously saying, what are the things that you're repeating in your content, right? And if you can then document these as the key kind of ideas or content pieces that you were talking about, you can then start to track and understand that this is what you're known for. We've gone from John being whoever, we've established his position in the market, we've established his point of difference. From there, we've understand the market. We've then established how we are going to source the content. We are then creating the themes based on the content and based on his position in the market, the content pillars and key ideas that he's going to repeat to appeal to his ICP, appeal to his dream follower, to eventually make sales or to get people signing up to his app, fucking whatever. If you're using Notion and you had a database, make sure you're using relations. Relate everything to content pieces, relate it to the content vaults, relate it to everything. AI needs that context if you're using AI like that. Or using Obsidian, whatever. And if you don't have either of them, get onto it. Once we have, those vault sources, we have the content pillars, that's when we start thinking about making content. If we zoomed out for a little bit, most people would say, oh, I want to make content, and they just go straight to distribution. I got to make a content calendar. I'm going to post on YouTube, LinkedIn, short form. I'm going to make a newsletter. I'm going to do everything. But they haven't even considered these first two steps here, which is where the people stand out, to be completely honest with you. Not even just in their content, but in how easy it is to make content. You don't even have to think about it. It just happens because it's just a system. It's just a flywheel. It's legit called a content engine for a reason. It's like a car. You put fuel in it, it starts going. You put your pedal on the gas, you start making content, and it just works, And this is where we start putting our foot to the pedal, is a scripting engine. Now, if we go back, we created this positioning architecture here, which was our voice guide as well. The voice guide is so important. Like I said, you want to mitigate the AI slop where possible. And that voice guide is legit how your script is going to sound like you. Because you can script content or you don't have to. This isn't scripted right now, right? But I do have some scripted content. And the reason you have to have some scripted content is because sometimes you need a little bit of guidance. Maybe a script isn't just hook and every single line scripted out. Maybe it is just giving you the hook, just giving you a couple of bullet points on what to talk about. So you are intentional with your content. Because if you're not intentional, your content's just going to be shit. But stop thinking about a script as a word for word, line for line that you have to deliver. Think of it as a way to just get started, a general topic. Either way, the voice guide becomes very, very important because you need to inject your voice into your scripts. If we look back at market intelligence, something that we do all the time is we look at the top performing posts. If my client was a coaching client, I would go and find the top coaches in his industry, like we did in the market intelligence. After we have the top coaches in the industry, I would look at their top performing posts, which is what we did in the intelligence. We have captured the transcript. We would then apply and deset that transcript with our SOPs to understand why it worked. Once we understand why it worked, we can then apply that to our coaching client. And think about it. If you just start creating a base of all of this information, all of these competitive videos, all these transcriptions, you can just apply it to multiple clients, multiple videos, multiple different angles. Doesn't matter. But the bit that makes it stand out is the positioning architecture, is your story being documented and the voice being calibrated to you. Because if you put it into AI, say, this is the transcription, I would like you to recreate it for me, it's going to sound like bullshit. It doesn't know what to talk about. It doesn't have the context on you, your voice, to create a good piece of content. So this is why you need to inject your voice into your scripting. Now, the reason we call it the script engine is like a sub little engine. I'm trying to think of what's the metaphor? I don't know. Maybe it's the turbo. I don't know. I don't like cars that much. But we have 4 separate systems for scripting. And the reason we do that is because one script is not enough. If you just have one kind of SOP, if you just have one SOP for your scripts, you're going to get the exact same output every single time. That's why we have 4. The architect, the accelerator, the craftsman, and the refiner. Now, our SOP will run this on every single idea. Now, when we go to script, we run all 4 of these on every single idea. And then we cross-reference into our matrix and we decide which script is the best for the topic, which script is the best for our ICP, and which script is best for our goal. Once we can figure out which one is the best, we then run with that script or that guide. But every single script plays a crucial part. The architect is going to build the structural skeleton, the hook, the context, the core value, the proof, the CTA. And it's written for clarity of argument, compared to the craftsman that is longer. It's going to take more time to create it. It's going to be tighter sentences and it's going to rely more on imagery. You know, it's completely different to the first prompt. But if we were only running with just one, this is what all our content would look like. There would be no difference in our pieces of content, which we don't want. Once we are able to script that, and it's more focused on the short form content, we then figure out our long form script, and long form is overcomplicated. I mean, like I said before, this doesn't have a script. I do have right in front of me here, I'm not even going to lie to you, I have every single phase that I'm talking about, and I have a couple of dot points on what I need to speak about. That's it. I'm not even really looking at it. But I still need to be intentional to script it and understand in the plan for my context, this is what was talked about in this video, and this is why I'm talking about it. Once you have the scripts, then you sit down to record. Again, look at that, there's 3 stages that people would have skipped, maybe 2. Most people would script a video, but even then, they've skipped all of this before even filming. They just go straight to production. And this is why people fuck up so bad. The only way that you can create content as a founder is batch filming, without a doubt. But you need to batch film correctly. You need to set yourself 2 to 3 hours every single week or every single 2 weeks to film your content for the month. Figure out what is viable for you, stick to it, create it a ritual, make it a habit that you have to do. And I think this is the number one thing that separates people that succeed in content and the people that don't. And it's the reason why the people I work with are able to keep the volume of output that they do, and also the quality. They walk into that 3-hour session knowing exactly what they're talking about, you know, and they know that when they walk out of that, they've got 2 weeks worth of content. It's not a guessing game every single morning. I could not think of anything worse than waking up at 8 a.m. and working throughout the day, doing all the things I need to do, and then thinking to myself, fuck, I need to record a video today and post it. No, I couldn't do it. But this is why a system is just so important, and a very dialed system as well. Because when you rock up to that batch session, you know exactly what you're recording, you know where it is, you know what it's going to look like, where it fits. It's just smooth, you know. And this goes back to that the Kmart bottle and the Frank Green one. The Frank Green bottle, sorry. You pick the Frank Green because it's premium, not the Kmart bottle. You don't want to be the Kmart bottle. And then once you've recorded, because recording is the easy bit. Like recording's so easy. I think most people overthink recording as well. I think recording is the easy stage as well. You've legit just got to talk about what you're already talking about because of your content vault, documenting everything and then just giving it to you and telling you what to talk about. You're just talking about things you've already spoken about. Instead, now it has a little bit of structure to it. Something I really want to hammer in here is people really overcomplicate this. I'm filming this on an Osmo Pocket 4. Is it the best quality in the world? No. Could it be better? Yes. Do I want to spend 30 minutes to an hour color grading it? Fuck no. What a waste of my time. It's just not worth it. The difference between me color grading it to the finest tea and, you know, making sure there's no grain and all that shit, like, yeah, I still want it to look good, but I'm not going to spend an hour color grading it. It creates friction points in the production process. I don't want friction. Again, it's an engine. It just needs to be simple. It needs to be smooth. I don't want to have to think. I just want to have to film, I edit it, or I send it to my editor, and that's it, and I post. If I'm having to worry about all these angles and where I'm going to film and friction, it's bullshit. And that's why you look at your top creators and like they're in the same spots all the time. Compared to your lower level creators, without being mean, they're in different spots every single day, every single time. They're just adding friction. Minimize the friction, make it simple. And by making it simple, you also need to think about your post-production. And again, this goes back to the color grading. If you can afford to pay an editor to color grade, go for your life. You know, if that really matters to you and you have the funds to do it, 100% do it. It's what's going to make you stand out, do it. Most people just can't afford it. You know, sometimes you've got to trade off something at the start. And I think that's one of the things you have to trade off, is quality to a certain degree. Anyways, the post-production. If you're hiring editors or you're outsourcing editors, you need to have an editor brief. Now, an editor brief can be as simple as, these are the visual inspirations that we have, this is the font that we use, and this is our audio library. Or it can be as complex as, here are project files, here are video references, here's the head editor for me or my creative director, mood boards, you know, all the scripts, everything. You pick where you want to be. You can be anywhere in the middle, you can be on one end, you can be on this end, whatever, but you need to have an editor brief. Especially if you are outsourcing, your editor isn't going to be able to bring your creative vision to life or bring your video to life without understanding your brand, your vision, and your inspiration. So if you can give them more context, again, like a computer, they're going to do better. Something that we have in our internal process is because we handle all the editing for our clients, is we have 3-pass editing. So it passes through 3 people before it even gets to the client. So it could go through 3 rounds of revisions before the client even sees it and reviews it and approves it. Now, what that could look like for you at a larger scale is maybe it's going through 3 different editors. I don't know. Now that's probably not something that you can apply to yourself if you're a one-man team, because there's no one else to really approve it. Maybe you could have your editor show it to, someone that you know, send it to you, and you should. Maybe you could have your editor send it to you, and you show it to someone that you know, and then you decide what you want to do. I don't know, but it's probably not something you can really focus on as a one-man team. But of course, you need to review and approve, and that is something that all our clients have to do. The review process is very, very detailed. It's very, very important. Once you've batch filmed, maybe 3 to 4 weeks worth of content, which is how we always do, which is why you see here the 1 to 3 week buffer, then you start thinking about distribution. The number one mistake I see creators make is they will say, okay, let's start making content, and they film, and then they post tomorrow. And there's the number one reason why they aren't consistent. Now, I go back to my analogy about this being like a car. You need to put fuel in it. Sometimes your engine will run out. It just depends. You are going to have to fill up. Sometimes your car is going to run out of fuel. You just need to decide when you are going to top it up. Are you going to top it up when it's empty? Are you going to top it up when it's half full, 3/4 full, whatever? You need to make that decision. And that comes down to the distribution in creating a buffer. I say a 1 to 3 week buffer. And this is saying to yourself, I'm going to fill my car up when it gets to quarter empty, Creates a buffer. I know I've got that little bar there. I've got that week's worth of content. So if I miss a week worth of content, if I miss a week of filming content, I'm not going to fall off the wagon. It's still there. This is why planning content is so important. And this is why you need to have a content calendar. I swear to God, if someone doesn't have a content calendar that's watching this video, or you're trying to do content and you don't even have it written down on a diary saying I'm posting X on this day, I can't help you. Man. Just do that first. But it's really, really important to understand that you're doing X on this date so that you can plan, this needs to be edited by this date. If you've got editors, you can tell your editors, I need it by X date, so that you're hitting deadline, and content is going out consistently. Now, if you are starting from complete scratch, you just said, cool, I want to make content, and you haven't done any content before, you have nothing to continue off of, or maybe you're doing a rebrand, maybe you're entering a new era, maybe you're getting a new car in this instance. You need a launch protocol, You need to understand you need to set yourself a date. Set yourself a date that you were going to start. Now, this isn't me delaying. Don't use that date as it's okay, I don't need to make content because I'm not launching until this date. No, use the date as I have until this date to get 2 weeks, 3 weeks worth of content filmed, edited, ready so that I can start. And when I launch on this date, everything is ready. Obviously, you need to take action. Don't take what I just said as an excuse to not take action, because most people will listen to that and will be like, oh, I can just spend all this time planning. Shrink the deadline as much as possible. If you have a launch protocol and you're saying on this date, we are launching, we have our 1 to 3 week buffer, we have our content calendar, we've created our briefs, we've batch filmed content, we know how we're doing it, we have our script engine done, we've calibrated my voice, we've got our vaults working, we have our key ideas, got everything mapped, cool. Then we can start posting content. Because if you don't have any of that done, when you are distributing content and you're trying to then go back to the scripting and production stage, you're going to be jumping back between stages. You can't do that. It's like going to Div 5 basketball and then going down to junior for training. It doesn't make sense. If you want to operate at the highest level and you want to have a content engine that is producing the best results, you need to spend the time planning or training and getting it to a level that you are happy with. Don't rush it, but also rush at the same time. Have some urgency. Something that we implement is platform-specific playbooks, because every single platform works differently. Whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on LinkedIn, or if you're on short form such as YouTube Shorts, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. You need to have a specific way that you approach each strategy. Really high level, everyone knows YouTube is the biggest trust platform for founder authority. If you're selling anything or you're trying to build a really loyal following, you need to be on YouTube in some capacity. Whether that's delivering insane raw value, like for example, this video is probably going to be like 30 minutes long and I'm just insane value. It's probably going to get like 25 views. Those 25 views may be very authentic and they may be community building views. You never know. But if you're trying to build trust, you're trying to sell something, you need to be on YouTube. LinkedIn is an underrated platform. And a lot of people ask me, why are you so big on LinkedIn? I think it is one of the easiest levers that you can pull in your business because it is pure copy. It's not like Instagram where you have to sit down and talk. I think if you just need to start making content and you want to start being visible in your personal brand or just get into the game, start with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is something that's going to carry so much authority as well, because when we think about who are we selling to, if you're a founder, you're probably already on LinkedIn. If you're just starting out, people with money are on LinkedIn. People in the actual corporate world are on LinkedIn. Business owners are on LinkedIn. It's very easy. It's a very professional platform. It's a way you can really build a network that you can leverage on. I have signed so many clients through LinkedIn, or I've met so many people through LinkedIn, more than Instagram. It's a very easy lever to pull, but it's very high leverage. So pull it. But then again, obviously, Instagram, short form, you need to be doing it. If you're not doing it, the other two platforms are basically irrelevant. You need to be across all of them in some capacity. Once you have started posting this, and you've got the distribution going, you're posting 4, 5, 6, or whatever times a week that you want to post. You're on YouTube, you're on LinkedIn, you're on Instagram, you're killing it, you're batch filming. Then you start looking at how do you take it up a notch. You need to start adding in certain things so that you can keep progressing. That's when we look at our growth engine menu. It's like a coffee shop. You get in, you get a coffee, but then after you got your coffee, in this instance, you start posting content. You may want a pastry. You may want a bread roll. I don't know. But this is when you start getting the add-ons. Do you need a newsletter? Do you want to do paid ads? How are we going to do conversion automations? How are we going to implement lead magnets? Do we need to think about upsells? Do we need to relook at the offer? There's lots of things that you then need to think about and implement to really take it to the next level. One of the two big things that we really do is a newsletter engine. Again, very low effort to pull off, high leverage. Now, there's a reason it's really high leverage is because you own the audience. There's a thing that no one really talks about is that Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever, you don't own those people. Those platforms own those people. They decide to follow you. Of course, people decide to subscribe to a newsletter, but at the end of the day, you own the list. You own that 1,000, 2,000 emails. So if you're trying to sell something or you're trying to build a long-term audience, you need to be collecting data, whether that's emails, phone numbers, whatever. And a newsletter is a really easy way to do that. That's why if you've ever gone to get a lead magnet from someone, they'll have you put in your email. It's so that they can start owning you as an audience member rather than just keeping you on a platform. They can directly send it to you in your inbox. The other thing that we really look at is conversion automations, which a lot of founders, once they start doing lead magnets, once they start doing offers, they know they need to be implementing things like ManyChat, or maybe it's Mochi for setters. There's simple automations that you can put into your business that are just going to make your content 10x. Now, that's realistically the entire content engine. That's how we make content from A to Z. We figure out the positioning, we understand our competition, we understand the ICP, we start collecting vault entries, we start collecting our sources of truth, whether that's content calls, workshops, voice memos, we create our key things that we're known for, we inject our voice into our scripts, we have multiple script engines, we script all our content, we then produce it in batches, we create editor briefs so that we can pass the editing off at some point. We then create a launch protocol if we're starting. We create a 1 to 3 week buffer on our content so that we're always consistent. We understand the difference between every single platform and create platform specific content. And then after that, we start looking at how we take it to the next level with our content and start actually owning the niche, owning the space, and creating some real authority. It's very simple, or at least I say it is. But you could, in theory, just take that, and that's the blueprint. I do really quickly want to talk about, though, is the operating system. How does it actually work? What does it actually look like? Because I've just told you every single step, but this is actually how we operate as a business. Now, we use Notion. Notion is elite. I can't stress it enough. We do everything in there, every SOP, everything. I can't even there's not a single thing that I do that isn't in Notion. But in terms of our backend, we have a content library, which is where every single piece of content lives. Briefs, scripts, the status, the platform, the pillar, when it was posted, the performance data, and where it came from in terms of, we've got relations to the content vault and content pieces. Which on the topic, the content pieces is that bridge, like I said, the raw ideas, the raw vault entries, and the kind of main things that we're talking about. From there as well, we have the content vault DB, which is where we keep track of every single content call, the workshop, the long forms of voice memos, everything lives in there. We then obviously have the editing tracking database, which is where if we start to offload editing, we give our editors a separate view so that they can understand their workflow. And then we, as the founders and as the operators, can understand, cool, X amount of videos are in editing. I need to review this piece of content. I'm not chasing them up. I'm not sending them silly little messages asking, oh, where's this video? It's just there. Two other things that we really push is having a results database. Too many people, especially in this space, get really, really good results, but they don't note it down anywhere. And this solves that problem. We really look at what are the results that we are getting. We bank it and we create it as context so that when we are actually doing, the scripting and whatever, we can pull on those results without having to think about it. They're just there. It's something we need to fabricate. We don't need to sit down when we start scripting and think, oh, what results did I get that relate to this idea? No, it's just there. It just happens. Another lever that we pull is obviously story sequences, and we create a sequence database that we can map every single sequence that we post, the performance of it, why it worked, what type of story it was, the images, the copy. And once we start keeping all of that information there, we can iterate on it. We can understand, why didn't this post work? Why did it not? How can we reiterate it? How can we recreate it? What can we do better next time? Something that we've actually implemented for our clients very recently is a client portal. Now, I'm actually just going to show it to you. This is something that we've given to our clients very recently. But Notion's really confusing. So if you're running an agency and you're watching this and you want to steal my entire game plan, go for it, whatever, I don't care. But Notion is really good as a back-end operations thing in terms of the way you use it, but it's not really user-friendly and it can be quite confusing. And when you're trying to get your clients to sign up, whatever, it can be a pain. So we created this front end, and it legit calls the exact same information from the Notion. Now, as you can see here, I've got my Instagram account connected. It's telling me my views, etc. It's not wanting to show in here because I'm my clients, but you can look in here and you've got every single content vault entry, the content calendar, the content library, the content calls. They can see that this has been scheduled for this date. This is where all their meeting notes live. All their strategy docs are in here. They have an AI success manager where they can ask it any single question that they want about their content, and it will just tell them. But the reason this works so well is because when they log in, they get this dashboard, they can see where their views are, they can see what content is waiting on their approval, what needs to be published, where is it being published. They can click on it. When they go into here, they can, see the content. If it loads, it's not gonna load. Like for example, this is needed approval. It'll pull the exact content, and if there's an image for it, it'll show it, and they can request changes, blah, blah, blah. They click post and it sends it to us. We just get the feedback. It's so simple. It just makes the entire process as service providers way easier. So if you're an agency, feel free to steal it. But also understanding that having these portals and having these interfaces that make the process so simple to achieve an end result are so important. Whether that is just in Notion and you need a clean UI or you need databases that make sense to you, that is also important. We have just created this client portal that makes sense for our clients. The main preface here is just making something that you enjoy logging into, enjoy using, and something that makes sense for you. Now, the last thing that I really want to hammer in before I call it here is data, monthly reviews and insights. If you are not tracking your post level data, you're operating blind, right? Like you don't know what the competition is doing, and you don't know where you sit among the competition. You don't understand which one of your posts are performing. You don't understand where they're dropping off. So therefore you can't improve your scripts. You don't have any information, you're flying blind. So start tracking your post level data, start tracking the views, start tracking the engagements, start figuring out what content is working and then unpacking it and analyzing it and understanding why it's working. But yeah, that's the entire strategy. So if you're an agency, feel free to steal it. I don't care. Go create the portal. Cool, don't care. But if you're an individual, you can apply this tomorrow. Go create it. It's a very simple workflow that you can instill. The main key things that you need to understand is making sure you document your story. Understand who you're talking to and why you're talking to them. Understand your point of difference or your authority narrative. What makes you the go-to person. Understand your position in the market. Understand your market then. Understand what videos are doing well. And after you understand what videos are doing well, start documenting every single time you're on a call. Have content calls with your friends. Get your friend to ask you some questions that will mine them, because I guarantee you'll get better answers from yourself compared to you just writing them on a keyboard, because your brain switches when it's in a different mode, when it's having a conversation with someone. And then start creating scripting SOPs that will call your voice so you can cancel out the AI slop, and then start producing. Start batch filming, get a buffer on your content, and then start distributing to the right platforms for the right reasons. Content's easy, man. Just stop overcomplicating it.